Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Good day.
Good day.
Hello. Welcome to Leftovers. It is another week has just almost come and gone. We have today and tomorrow. And today we'll talk about everything outside of football and rugby. If you haven't watched the football and rugby episodes yet, particularly the rugby one, I liked what we did in the rugby one. I think we took on some people that deserve to be taken on. Anyway,
I was trying to think back to what we did in the rugby.
If you want to know more about that, go check it out. It's pretty good, and I like to think. And on football, we also covered a couple of interesting topics, particularly related to AI. And so, even if you're not into the nitty gritty of football, it might be some interesting stuff there, just to whet your appetite, I guess.
Dive in.
Exactly. But in the Leftovers episode, as you will know now, we cover everything that's outside of the world of rugby and football. And today, for once, we have cricket creeping in. Mm-hmm. We've spoken a lot about Formula One and golf in the last few weeks, and we will speak about golf a bit more. But yeah, I don't know. Big news this week, and I want to just actually talk about the various permutations that this might have for global cricket, but also sport. A 14-year-old Indian batsman. His name is, and I apologize profusely if he's watching this and I get this wrong. You know, he's 14, so he's definitely on the medias a lot.
100%.
Vaibhav Suryavanshi. One more time. Vaibhav Suryavanshi is his name.
Okay.
He's 14 years old, and he plays for the Rajasthan Royals in the Indian Premier League, which in itself is, even getting into the squad, is impressive, right?
Yeah. But what did he do?
Not only does he play professional cricket at the age of 14 at the highest T20 level there is, I would argue, he made 101 runs off 38 balls.
How much?
101 runs off 38 balls.
Yes.
Against the Gujarat Titans in front of a packed house. Now, I watched the highlights of his innings. It is unfucking believable.
How many boundaries is he hitting in that time frame?
Another thing I have to mention here, it is the second fastest century in IPL history. Okay. And he hit 11 sixes and 7 fours.
Oh my word.
So 88 of his runs, 94 of his runs. Is that correct maths? 66 plus 28? Yeah. 94 of his runs coming off boundaries alone.
And do you know if he was being bowled to by a mix of spinners and fast bowlers, pace bowlers, or was it predominantly the one?
Yeah, it was definitely a mix. He definitely took on the pace bowlers predominantly, which is quite normal in subcontinent conditions, particularly if they don't get their line and length right. But he took them apart.
What were you doing at 14?
I dreamt of doing that, but I was probably playing cricket on a PlayStation, and I was heavily overweight, so
I was struggling to get sixes by hitting it over the neighbor's wall.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about now a little bit is, in football you've seen the phenomenon of players breaking into teams, getting younger and younger. I think it's because of the highly professionalized environments that these kids come out of. If you're physically, particularly in football, you can physically keep up. Sir Alex Ferguson said, "If you're good enough, you're young enough." Which
you're young enough. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, no. If you're good enough, you're old enough. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jeez. Good Lord. One way to kill a quote. But yeah, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and that's something that he applied. I think there's obviously limitations to football more so than cricket. I'll come to it in a second. There's obviously sports like rugby that it's just never going to happen because there's a certain physicality to a player that's needed. I would say 14-year-old, even the biggest and strongest 14-year-olds probably won't be breaking into any international or professional sides in rugby. Women's tennis has been a sport that has often had very young people come through. Gymnastics, obviously. Skateboarding is always something that's crazy to me that at the Olympics, a lot of the medals are won by people that are under the age of 16.
Oh.
And cricket is an interesting one because I think you obviously need a certain amount of strength, right, to hit a cricket ball.
Yeah.
But the threshold is, I think, much lower than people would realize, particularly of fast bowling, if your timing is there. They always say when you're trying to hit aggressive shots in cricket that you should really let the bat and the ball do the work. So, it's really about timing and placing the ball and that. So I don't know. This opens all sorts of, to me, it opens all sorts of Pandora's boxes as to like what we might now see in cricket.
I'm trying to think about the strength aspect of it. And I mean, the only thing that would really play a part is in how quickly can you change the trajectory of your bat and the weight of the bat.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you have no fear, which children usually don't have, yeah, you could go quite low. I mean, I think there is a crossover point that's never going to happen. I don't know where that is, but I could imagine that 11-year-old would maybe mentally not be able to compute what's happening and deal with the pressure of the environment. I think that you also start finding, again, on the mental side of it, a limitation when it comes to like the shit talking that goes on behind the crease. So I think kids might then be exposed to a level of the game that's maybe not conducive to their age.
Yeah, so leading up to the IPL is one of those tournaments where there's a big sort of auction, and it's quite well publicized, the moves that clubs are making to try and get certain players. And when the Rajasthan Royals decided to draft this player, essentially, there was a lot of criticism from the cricketing world in India. They said it's a gimmick, and there's he's got great stats at sort of county level in India and club level in India, but this is way too premature, way too much. And at first it seemed like it a little bit because he did struggle to find his feet a little bit. I mean, he had another innings a couple weeks ago that was quite impressive in how quickly he made runs anyway and made them relatively quickly. I think making about a 30 something off 20 balls, which is solid innings at a 14-year-old. And so he's really silenced the people that said, no, this is premature, it's a gimmick, it's whatsoever. My question is, of course, you kind of think, okay, where to from here now? Because you lift your own ceiling way higher by doing that. And obviously, to a certain degree, the pressure's off for him. But on the other hand, if he keeps playing like this, the Indian selectors will have to look at him and
as a national team.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a long way off that. Let's be honest. There's so much talent in the IPL, Indian talent. But if he keeps doing this, then it's going to be really interesting to see how they approach it. Because South Africa, for example, tend to wait quite long in cricket. Mm-hmm. Some would argue it's a good thing. Some would argue it's a bad thing. A lot of people, Australia also do it. You often have Australian cricketers making their debut very close to 30 at times, at test level particularly, and go on to have great careers. Mike Hussey was one of them. There's a whole bunch of other examples of guys that really, their best parts of their career are sort of the 4 or 5 years after they've turned 30. So there's an argument there. In South Africa, we've had examples with Vernon Philander, was picked quite late in his career. He went on to be one of the most prolific seam bowlers in the modern era. But then there's other examples where I'd argue, hey, I hope the cricket South Africa are watching this and, not keeping people like Dewald Brevis or Luandre Pretorius back, two guys that really broke through now in the SA20. People saying, why are they not just give them, rather put them in the side now and give them time and let them play. But yeah, I guess this we will see.
So do you think how does something like this happen? Because I'm thinking like, as a normal kid going to school, you just don't have enough time to be honing that craft. I mean, you can essentially only train after school or maybe before school, but other than that, you don't have the access. You've got other priorities, right? School. How does it happen that a kid like this becomes so good? Is it just pure natural talent, or is there some sort of an academy where it allows them to get more training?
Well, I think in India, with the way things are now, exposure to the game is very good. If you grow up in any sort of urban areas, you don't have to look far to be able to be exposed to the game of cricket. I think on top of it, from what I understand, he's also from a bit of a more of an affluent family, so I don't think rich by any means, and I don't think he's a nepo baby as everyone kind of jumps on. He's definitely someone that probably went to a private school, where there was a proper cricketing structure. And from what I've read, is he's just been unreal at sort of the lower levels in cricket, and had been given a contract, I think, as a 13-year-old to play sort of one of the levels down in India, and outperformed all expectations. So this is how he landed. And I think, although it is a gimmicky, the gimmicky stuff works in the IPL. If you've ever watched the IPL, it definitely works. And I think I remember when he got picked, I remember it being a huge story. So for them to take the risk on something like that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. What sport do you think is the youngest you could go in? Think it's gymnastics?
I think gymnastics also has its limits in terms of physicality, because you need to have a certain, I think girls obviously develop earlier. So I think you have the ability there. The girls sort of reach the age where their muscle structures and everything are at a point where they can do the things you need to reach a certain speed and have a certain amount of strength to do gymnastics. I think that just comes so early to them. So I think it must be up there. I mean, I think a 12-year-old won an Olympic medal in the skateboarding at the last Olympics.
And that's just death-defying, no sense of your own mortality.
Yeah, I guess so. But I suppose there it's, with sports with like a lot of micro movements like skateboarding, I think skateboarding, obviously you need to get up to a certain speed, but if you're just kind of doing the freestyle stuff and you just have to get the board off the ground, and then do a lot of micro movements with your feet, I suppose age, you obviously have to reach a certain level of maturity. But I think as soon as I think that point also is reached pretty early. And I think there again, it was the girls. It was the guys sort of were also quite young, which shocked me as well. But the girls were the ones sort of winning at 12 and 13, I think. Don't quote me, but definitely there was a 13-year-old that won a medal at the last Olympics.
And because it's the next topic that we're going to slide into, do you know what the stats are on the youngest golfer to win let's go with a major?
The youngest major winner? That's a very good question. My assumption is that it's probably a long time ago. I'm going to do a live search here. I do know that Rory broke a bunch of records for being the youngest in terms of certain things. I think he might be the youngest to ever win 2 majors. Although Tiger, ever major winner golf. So you guys can see that, it's all here. I think Tiger obviously broke a lot of records too. Tom Morris Jr. So
who the heck is that guy?
I mean, it's in 1868. So he was 17 years old and 5 months and 8 days. For anyone who doesn't know, old Tom Morris is one of the sort of founding members of modern golf. One of the best architects in golf as well. In the modern era, it's not very modern, John McDermott, who won the 1911 US Open, 19 years, 10 months and 14 days. And for women's golf, Lydia Ko, who's an unreal female golfer and one of the greatest of all time, won at the age of 18 when she won the Evian Championships. So, I think even there, man, I think particularly in the modern era, you just have to hit the ball pretty far. And I think on some of these golf courses, and I think unless you really are like very well developed at a young age, I think it just takes some time to get to the distances you need to have.
But interesting that there was nobody below 18.
Yeah, true. I think there's a lot of sports out there where it probably is really completely irrelevant. But I know chess players, for example, are getting younger and younger as well, like chess master kids. Yeah. I think there was a 9-year-old that recently...
wouldn't define that as a sport, though. It's a game.
It's on ESPN 8 along with dodgeball and spelling bees.
Yeah, but so is Texas Hold'em.
Exactly. But let's see what kind of can of worms this opens. And I hope the South African selectors are watching that and understand that we need to give, if you're good enough, you're old enough. I got it right now.
There we go.
Okay. Anyway, moving on to golf. Team golf is big on the agenda at the moment. Mm-hmm. What would you like to start with? The Ryder Cup or the President's Cup?
I'd like to start with the Ryder Cup.
Okay, the Ryder Cup. Ryder Cup's coming a little closer in September, I believe. Back on US soil at Bethpage Black.
Which we've actually played on a simulator.
I played very poorly on the simulator, yes.
Yeah. And we were playing with rental clubs essentially.
Yeah.
With floppy shafts and whatnot.
Nevertheless,
Tight.
Bethpage Black, they say one of the toughest public courses in the world. It is public, which is quite cool. I think you don't pay that much to play it, but you can never get a tee time. It's like impossible because they've played multiple US Opens there and now playing the Ryder Cup. So that venue will just continue to grow. Pretty impressive. Off the back of the Masters, we spoke about how many Europeans were kind of floating around and how it looked quite good. Yeah. Did you want to say something? No, you were on it. All right.
Scratching inside my face.
But let's have a quick look at the current team standings and who's going into those competitions. The Europeans, interestingly, keeping Luke Donald because off the back of his fantastic performance in 2023 as captain. And the USA choosing Keegan Bradley as captain.
Okay.
Quite a progressive, very interesting decision. And we'll get to a bit more of it soon. But it works a little bit differently, but essentially both the US and the European players have a chance to gain points through their performances across the season. There are then, in Europe, it's a world list and a European list. So if you play in Europe, you kind of get rewarded for it. Or if you do well on European soil, the top 3 from the European soil go through, and then from the world list, the top 3 go through, which is like completes the 6. And in the US, it's just a straight list of 6 people. And there are then also captain's picks.
How many captain's picks?
6 captain's picks per, which is quite a lot. You know, half your team is off the back of the the whim of the captains, which I find quite interesting.
Nepotism.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Currently, the standings are for the USA, the top 6. Obviously, these are not final yet, but we're getting closer to that point. Scotty Scheffler at number 1.
Sure.
Xander Schauffele at number 2. Colin Morikawa at 3. Bryson DeChambeau at number 4.
Only at 4, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
He plays on live, so that you don't get as many points.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Russell Henley, number 5, a bit of a strange one, but he's done really well on tour this year.
Okay.
And then Justin Thomas, after his win at the RBC Heritage, sneaks into 6th spot.
Can you see who's next on the list in terms of positions?
Yes. Let me take you through the top 6 on Europe first, and then we'll go through what we think. I'll read the rest of the names through to you, and we can maybe try and also pick a couple of outsiders that are not on the list. But Europe's top 6 are Rory McIlroy, Tyrrell Hatton, Justin Rose, Rasmus Højgaard, Shane Lowry, and Ludwig Aberg.
It sounds like a very fun team.
It also sounds exactly like the team that
won the last one.
So there's a lot of cohesion there, which is good. And I would argue that's one of the indirect sort of upper hands that Europe has, is that their top golfers, I personally don't believe the competition for places can be compared to the US competition for places in the Ryder Cup. I think the competition is so crazy in the US, and someone like Russell Henry will always all of a sudden pop up and have a couple of good tournaments, and then he's in there, and I think Europe has more of a theme of like players hanging around, playing multiple Ryder Cups, etc. So yeah, let me take you through the US next 6 that are outside of that top 6 group. Maverick McNeely,
who you would think should probably be in the reckoning for being a captain's pick, right?
or could very well be disappointed. Maverick McNeely, great name. Brian Harman, he's been there before. JJ Spawn, who lost in the playoff to Rory at the Players. Patrick Cantley, who hates wearing a hat because he doesn't get paid. 11, Andrew Novak, and Andrew Novak is an interesting one. He just won his. So he lost to Justin Thomas in the playoff at the RBC Heritage. Never had won on tour before. He's always kind of been there. He's a bit of a journeyman. The week after RBC, plays the Zurich Classic and goes on to win with his partner to get his first PGA Tour victory.
Right.
Which is, looks like he's building up some serious momentum. And then number 12 is Harris English, someone who's been on the PGA Tour for absolute eternities, and he's just such a consistent performer. And then let me read the top. Other.
Before you go to that, who's like a surprise omission? Not omission because it hasn't been selected yet, but Who are you most surprised by that's not in that top 12?
Jordan Spieth's a big name.
That's who I was thinking as well, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Spieth's a big name. I look at that bottom 6 and I go, Keegan Bradley could be in there.
Mm.
And he's captain. And he's refused to rule himself out of picking himself as a player captain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. And I mean, if we look...
Is that not a little bit of a silly way to go? Like, rather have a captain who can go and like motivate guys and monitor and manage.
It's never been done before. So I think there's no precedent. You know?
Okay, fair enough.
Then let's look at I really want to look at the bottom 6 or the next 6 in Europe, and I think you might find our view is confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
You have Tommy Fleetwood at 7.
He played last time.
You have Thomas Detry,
right.
Belgian. He won the Waste Management Phoenix Open this year.
Mm-hmm.
You have Matt Wallace, who's been on the PGA Tour now for a couple of years, performing well. Before that I think he won 6 or 7 times in like 2 years on the European Tour. Then you have Nicholas Norgard, another PGA player at number 10. 11 is Laurie Cantor, who's currently leading second to Rory McIlroy in the race to Dubai rankings. He's had a couple of big wins this year. He broke into the top 50 of the world rankings. Also someone who now, because of that, is going to have more exposure to the PGA Tour. And then number 12 is Victor Hovland.
Oh, he's just made it, eh?
He's there. I mean, he had a few good performances.
Yeah.
He won again on the PGA Tour, so that obviously helped him.
Surprise omission? Well, not surprise, but unfortunate omission.
I mean, I think I didn't expect him to be in the list because he's not playing well. But John Rahm, for example, is someone that I think Sergio would even be putting his hand up. Someone with one of the greatest Ryder Cup records ever.
Right.
But I would say that bottom 6, let's say, other than Wallace, Norgard, and Cantor, just because they're kind of a little bit more peripheral figures.
Yeah.
Thomas Detry, Fleetwood, and Hovland. I mean, Detry is very underrated in my opinion. I think he's in his early 30s, and he's had an insane career since he broke onto the tour when he was like 20. And now he's gone to the US. He's won on tour this year. He hits the ball an absolute mile as well. Very interesting. And I think another big element here is you have I would argue, more European players than ever that are currently on the PGA Tour. And they're going to be playing a very American golf course.
Yeah. So they've got a lot of exposure to that style of golf.
Yeah. So interesting to see how this all develops. I think way more conundrums, in my opinion, for Keegan Bradley, with his possible own selection, which is going to be very noisy, and it's going to be something that he's going to have to try and figure out. I think it's exacerbated by the fact that you have that bottom 6 list is just not inspiring.
No.
Maverick McNeely, pretty young on tour. He's been good, but, is he good enough? Brian Harmon, you would argue for a course that is as long as Bethpage Black and is going to be as difficult at Bethpage Black, might not be the right kind of player. He doesn't hit the ball far enough. Yeah. And he also didn't have a good showing in Italy when he was part of the team. JJ Spawn, he's won once on the PGA Tour so far, had a good showing at the Players, but is he the guy that gets you a point in the singles? Is he a guy that goes out there and really gets you points in the Ryder Cup week with the competition being like this? I don't know. Patrick Cantley, not someone who's not without a lot of controversy. And you could argue that, if he's not in that top 6, I think you could argue that, why? Particularly with people like Tony Finau's missing in that list. Yep. Sahid Theegala's missing in that list.
Yeah.
What's his face? Bhatia is not in that list. These are all guys, young firecracker golfers. And then Andrew Novak, look, he's done well. I just don't see him as a Ryder Cup player, and Harris English the same. So I personally believe that it's going to be harder for Keegan Bradley to get to a final 12. and it'll be the sword that he has to die on at the end of the day, or not die on.
Yeah. From the potential teams that you've listed, I mean, that's obviously not considering the fact that those last 6 or beyond the first 6 is not captain-based picks. That was just points-based that you've currently listed. Who do you feel has currently got the better chance of getting it done? Europe or America?
For me, it has to be Europe. Off the back of the last one, similar team, the vice captains are similar, your core team is similar. I think your bottom 6 is stronger, so it makes might make the decision making a bit easier. I believe that the players, actually, I think the American players that are not in that top 12 list, I think are almost more exciting, in my opinion. I think someone like Tigala, Bhatia, Phenom, those are guys that can come in and do a job. Whereas I don't know. I don't know if I believe John Rahm can come in, but I think it'll be hard for Luke Donald to ignore John Rahm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, because this is something that, I don't know if we've spoken about it on camera, but we've spoken about it offline, or off camera, the Europeans at the last Ryder Cup seem to have more, that's going to sound very nasty towards the Americans, but they seem to have more culture as a team.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of, but it's something that can be said almost most Ryder Cups. The Americans often have a higher concentration of top 10 players, so dudes that are at each other's throats week in, week out, trying to beat each other. I think that's hard to overcome. I mean, you had the Brooks Koepka, DeChambeau thing.
Yeah.
You have someone like Scotty who's just such a relentless figure. He's there every week and he's such a crazy competitor. I sometimes wonder if they have the switch in them to kind of,
we're friends.
Yeah. Now and again, I also think that's a big part of the captain's job, and I think Luke Donald just got it right. So,
just speaking of captains, who in the future, obviously not for this next upcoming one, who would you like to see become a captain? Maybe even from the current playing pool, or playing potential teams, both for the US and for the European team. Like, who do you think in the next 10 to 15 years would be super iconic?
He's turned it down already, apparently, but Tiger.
Yeah, of course.
He has turned it down. Apparently, he was in line, but he just says I just think for him, he just feels it's too early for him.
Okay.
I think.
He might feel like, I wish I could be competing in the team and not managing the team.
Yeah. I think that would be crazy. I think if you look even further down the line, I think Bryson DeChambeau would be an insane captain for the Americans.
Because he would go so technical at it.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those guys that's hard on the sleeve, kind of. I think he'll find a way to galvanize a set of American players.
That's so true, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think on the European side, someone like Justin Rose, I think is just unreal. I think he's had such a long career. He's played through so many. His Ryder Cup record is insane. And you saw the grace with which he handled losing out to Rory, which is not an easy thing to do. I don't think he gets enough credit. It's not easy to be that graceful in a situation like that when you're that heartbroken. I think he's the perfect candidate.
And everybody just loves him, right? He's just such a nice guy. He's such a friendly dude. So he would be able to, like, people would really want to rally behind him.
For sure.
I think that's where you get the big motivating factor.
I don't want to be too mean here. But Ryder Cup captain, for example, is something that I just don't see a Rory McIlroy doing.
Why?
I don't know. I just put him in a similar locker maybe to a Scotty to a certain degree. I don't think he's bad in a team or anything, but I just don't see it. I don't think being a great golfer is good enough.
Yeah, it's a completely different set of tools.
I think it's an inevitability because I think he would love to, and I think the Ryder Cup, and we'll get to a comparative tournament, and the Ryder Cup really makes sure that it gets real legends and people in to maintain this massive, essentially it's just a massive freight train, the Ryder Cup. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It feels like it anyway.
Yeah. I think somebody like, I don't think this is ever going to happen, but somebody like Tyrrell Hatton would be pretty funny.
Yeah. I think if he gets a major, it could happen. Someone like Shane Lowry.
Totally. That's who I was going to say now. I think Shane Lowry is the kind of guy who's got the personality for it.
Yeah. But looking forward to that though, and we'll keep an eye on that and see how it kind of progressive and totally talk through the captain's picks when the time comes. And then I think as soon as the captain picks have come through and the teams are there, we'll take a way deeper dive into what we think the predictions will be.
100%.
Then the comparative competition, just to wrap up the episode, the President's Cup. President's Cup is happening next year again. I don't even know where it's happening, to be honest. It's in the States, but I don't know where. The last one was in Montreal. The President's Cup on so many metrics is trying to at least compete with the Ryder Cup in terms of getting people excited about team golf. They announced both captains this week, and I'm going to tell you the names of these captains, and I want to know your reaction.
Okay.
The international captain is Jeff Ogilvy.
Nice guy. Yeah.
And the American captain is Brandt Snedeker.
Who the heck are these people?
Exactly. My fucking point. Exactly. They've both had okay careers. They've both won majors. So I think Jeff Ogilvy won the US Open and Brandt Snedeker won either one of the PGA or the... Actually, I think he might have even won a green jacket. Let me just double check this. But yeah, my problem with it is exactly that. Is that if someone's asking who the fuck are these people, do we really think that these are the people that... And someone who's relatively, I would say, at least into the modern game and current game. Like, if you're asking me who the fuck these people are, then how can they be captains of quite an aspirational team golfing competition?
Yeah. Well, how do these captains get selected?
Brandt Snedeker has not won a major.
So he's won nothing of
Yeah,
importance.
he's finished third and stuff and had a very good long PGA Tour career. But anyway, I just think it's crazy. I had laughed out loud when I saw the names. Ogilvy had a sort of about a 5-year period, I would say, where he was very, very good. And he was always up there and played multiple President's Cups, and he's been there a lot before. My assumption is that they got chosen because both of them have played multiple President's Cups. But yeah, it's a bit of a laugh.
Unbelievable.
And I say you get what you ask for, and I just think they can't be surprised if the tournament doesn't grow and doesn't garner more interest if their captains are those two people. And we're talking about a competition here that had Gary Player and Jack Nicklaus as captains in the early 2000s. So headed by Ernie Els and Tiger Woods, it's just, they ended up drawing in the fading light at Fancourt Links back in the day. I think it was 2003.
In Fancourt?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Insane. It was like one of the most iconic golf moments ever. And to fall from grace so hard that you pick Brandt Snedeker and fucking Jeff Ogilvy to captain your teams.
It's like the polar opposite of the competition.
Yeah. Anyway, so my interest will not be that peaked. Let's see if we even do a prediction, because who cares? But we'll see when the time comes next year.
Anyway, well, if you've got a top 12 that you think should be in the European team or in the American team, just let us know in the comments. Thank you for educating me on who Ogilvy is.
No worries. Apparently one of the worst tempers in golf as well. He used to just snap his clubs over his legs. And then he figured it out for 5 years, won a lot, and then apparently he lost the ability to do it, to keep out the demons. So
I thought you meant like lost the ability to snap his clubs.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. He lost the ability to control it.
No, I thought you meant he couldn't break it anymore because he wasn't strong enough.
No. I think he's still very much strong enough.
Okay.
So.
Well, on that note, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow for What a Week.
Indeed.